before you go out and try to convince new people to become a client, just make sure you're working really well with the people who are already convinced. And then show them how to convince people on your behalf in the spirit of advocacy and introductions, growing, teaming, scaling. And now, of course, a lot of advisors are thinking about exiting. The difference between going out and finding information that exists somewhere else versus assembling information that's specific to what you're trying to accomplish is incredibly profound. I ask advisors, be a serious student. As a fiduciary, you've got to know where this is going because every aspect of the digital world is being impacted right now by AI. Like we all know the blue chip providers, but literally everything is being impacted by AI. The beautiful thing about AI is the one thing it'll never have is EI, and that's emotional intelligence. That's the bedside manner. That's where relationship management really is. And what advisors are starting to figure out is that their fee worthiness is going to start coming more from their commitment to practice management and relationship management.
Systems work, people feel. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser.
Half the year has come and gone. We are officially in quarter 3, and I couldn't be more excited to bring each and every one of you an incredible guest here on the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Hauser, and today we are joined with Pareto Systems, Duncan MacPherson. How are we doing today, Duncan?
Jeremy, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing good, and it's an honor for those of you that may have seen Duncan worked with us over the last 10 plus years. His team has been incredible around practice management and also relationship management and processes. So make sure, get yourself a cup of coffee. This will be a good episode as you fine tune some processes here towards the end of your back half of 2025 here. So Duncan, can you share a little bit for those that don't know or maybe haven't seen you in the past? Share with the audience a little bit about Pareto Systems and a little bit about your background as well too.
Yeah, so I've been working with financial professionals for 30 years, and the whole premise has been attract and keep great clients and run a business like a business, adopting best practices and been emphasizing the importance of stewardship over salesmanship. I believe a financial advisor's value is bought, not sold, especially now that we have moved fully away from anything around a transactional engagement. It's more directional and where the relationship is going and addressing clients' unmet needs. So fortunately, just developed and refined an approach. Crowdsourced a lot of it. I've been saying for years that the people who like us the most need us the least. They're all very high caliber. And the beautiful sort of takeaway from me is that I get as much out of these interactions with top financial advisors as they do. So it's just really taken this to another level. And here we are 30 years later.
Isn't that something? I mean, I just wrote that down already. People that like us the most need us the least. And I see that commonly of really like value proposition and attracting who you want to attract. And so like following you guys for the last 10 plus years, and it seems like your team's process it's been the same. It's like you guys add new tools here and there, but the process, the people may have changed, but it's not even changed. It's you've added to what you're currently doing. So what is that? So like, how has your firm been so consistent over the years with your processes to help advisors with practice and relationship management? Like tell us a little bit, like what led to that success?
Jeremy, we kind of grew up with the financial advisor as they matured and got their traction. We evolved with them. When we began, we started with just primarily organic growth. And my premise always from an organic growth perspective is before you go out and try to convince new people to become a client, just make sure you're working really well with the people who are already convinced. and then show them how to convince people on your behalf in the spirit of advocacy and introductions. That's where it started. And that's evergreen. That's never going to change. Organic growth with stewardship. But then, of course, as advisors evolve from being sort of knowledge for profit professionals, transactional around products, they started to shift to more expertise, advisory, an emphasis on fee worthiness. They started adding depth and breadth to their solution set, building out their bench. Then it shifted from growing to teaming.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're dealing with the HR realities. You're dealing with, the alignment of creating chemistry with team members and all of that. So it's growing, teaming, and then it shifted to scaling, where advisors started realizing, wow, my organic business is a proof of concept. I can now attract other advisors to adopt and draft in behind my process, create some leverage. And as a very good client of mine said it very well. He said, why would I bring on 100 clients? I could bring on one advisor with 100 clients, which is a profound insight. So again, growing, teaming, scaling. And now, of course, a lot of advisors are thinking about exiting, and they want to have their continuity and succession plan. They want to monetize and secure their legacy around their life's work. So that we just sort of evolved with the advisor and just expanded our deliverables. But it was always rooted in a philosophy of what's best for the client. Jeremy, you probably heard me say I use this analogy of the open kitchen. I like restaurants that are an open kitchen because they're transparent in how they conduct themselves. Well, I say to advisors as well, like, just be completely forthright and transparent with your clients so they understand and appreciate your value. So anyway, long-winded response, but that's how it's progressed over those 30 years.
Yeah, and it's been incredible. And I definitely want to talk more about the monetization, I would say, success you've had with other firms of getting them to actually exit with multiples on their business. But I think it starts first where one of the questions becomes, you mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about a little bit on working on your business instead of in your business. So how important is it to really lean into the client experience for advisors to develop that advocacy thing that you guys preach so much?
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to pay tribute to you because you're really at the top of your game right now, because you're really understanding where this industry is going, and like a lot of advisors talk a good game about working on the business, but really what that means is understanding that it's everything you build, your way, your process is an intellectual property. You got to get everything you do out of your head. If it's in your head, it's a skill, it's an intention. The moment it's documented, the moment it's standardized and optimized and professionalized digitally, physically, now it's an actual thing. Okay, so that's IP. That's what it means to work on the business. Have a playbook, have a process, have it all defined, and literally to the point where you could show a client, this is our service model. This is how we conduct ourselves. This is how you can, what you can expect from us. Now, backing up, I didn't invent working on your business. I mean, a lot of people give me credit for it, but for me, creativity is just my ability to conceal my sources. And my source for that was Michael Gerber.
Sure.
I literally listened to a book on tape back in I think it was 1995. Maybe it was 96. It was Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. And he talked about the difference between working in a business and working on a business. And he used the analogy of a baker. He said, there's a big difference between somebody who's an effective baker and somebody who runs a successful bakery. There's so much more that goes into that. So one's transacting, trading time for money. It's like almost like pumping up a leaky tire. You're starting over every morning. The other person's building momentum through incrementalism, just sequentially building something within their business. So that's where the enterprise value, that's where the scale starts to flourish. And from the advisor's perspective, that's where the shift happens, where the business starts to serve the advisor's life instead of the other way around. Because as you would know, I know you're very close to this, for a lot of advisors, the business is running them. They're not running it. But the moment they become process driven, the moment they start to standardize everything, there's this liberation and order that emerges. So again, long-winded response, but that's what's separating the best from the rest, especially right now.
Why settle for the average when you can get the standard? The standard's annuity offerings are anything but average. Older ages, in fact, you can write a fixed index annuity up to age 93 with this carrier. Amazing. Shorter durations, unique liquidity, and a competitive death benefit rider are just some of the standout features offered. And the standard has held a continuous A rating or better ever since AM Best began rating insurance companies. For more information, go to www.insuremarkamp.com/Jay Hauser and click on Learn More. Great features and great ratings set the standard with the standard. Couldn't agree more. Especially, which is great, by the way. So, and I've seen it before, but knowing that that's where the idea came about of where the evolution so 96, that's almost 30 years ago. Michael Gerber, E-Myth. So that's something that advisors, and they always evolve, right? So even if they've read the book or listened to it, 15 years later, 10 years later, you read a book, you're a completely different person. So it's worth checking out those type of resources, would you say?
Well, the beauty about being a serious student and working hard on yourself is that the clay remains soft. Okay. So you become this perpetual learner, and you start to develop this philosophy about how do I differentiate myself? How do I achieve professional contrast? And how do I achieve self-actualization? Like what is my limit? We work with a lot of advisors, Jeremy, on this whole concept of plateau avoidance. Okay. So I talked to an advisor who's managing 400 million in AUM, and I started asking him about his goals and his aspirations. And I say, you're probably closer to $1 billion advisor than a $400 million advisor. And then years later, they have this breakthrough. And I say, okay, now you're $1 billion AUM advisor. Do you find it fascinating that nowhere in your breakthrough did you all of a sudden become a better financial advisor? You were already good at your technical ability. What did you get better at? You understood your blind spots. You understood your unmet needs, your untapped opportunities, your overlooked vulnerabilities. You addressed those. You kept chipping away and refining and optimizing them. You got deeper into practice management. You're running the business like a business. It's no longer a book of business. And it's incredible, the breakthroughs that happen. And so we've been talking about this for a long time. I think because of demography and external dependencies around, volatility in the marketplace and noise, it's starting to really culminate where it's like probably arguably the best time to be a financial professional right now.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. And I'm seeing it too. And also it's because change has happened, especially the last 3 or 4 years, technology, everything that's building. But I know your team has done a really good job of helping advisors once again with exit strategies. So what, in your opinion, what have y'all learned? So what have y'all learned for when it comes to helping an advisor create that exit strategy to monetize their life's work as you frame it? What are some of the biggest takeaways that y'all's team has actually learned from that process?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, first of all, there's the duality. It's not just advisors that kick that can down the road. Often it's their clients as well, especially self-made, first-generation affluent clients. You think about people that nobody gave them anything. They're the 25-year overnight success story. And sometimes it's subconscious. They don't even think about what the end looks like, but you have to begin with the end in mind. Every business is built to be sold, and every investment of effort you make working on your business culminates in that. So you've got these clients now that are maturing. They're financially independent, and they've left some things undone. Then you've got the advisor. So the premise is, Jeremy, that the advisor can make himself or herself indispensable to those clients and very attractive to that type of client by addressing their own continuity and succession needs in real time. So as a lifelong planner, it's not optional for you and for your clients. Number one. Number two, just making sure that your legacy is secure. This isn't about a transaction. This is about, okay, I want to make sure my clients are in good hands. I want to make sure my team is in good hands when I bow out or whatever that end game looks like. So it requires meticulous planning. And, just so you know, we have a little framework there. And the acronym is TOP. So TOP speaks to make sure your business is tidy, make sure it's optimized, and make sure it's proprietary. So tidy is, back office, no skeletons, no hair. Everything is just absolutely immaculate. It's like staging a home before you go to sell it so that the curb appeal, the first impression is good. Nobody finds anything. I mean, it's not uncommon that somebody selling an expensive property will actually do a home inspection on their own home before they list it to be preemptive around issues that can be found later. So just tidy. Optimized means your numbers, you know your qualitatives, your quantitatives, quality and quantity of referrals you're receiving, efficiencies, everything's completely optimized. And then proprietary means you've completely depersonalized the business. Okay, so what that means is nothing resides in anyone's heads. You've made everyone obsolete because everything's documented. Everything's organized. I know you know this, but there's a rule in practice management called the rule of three. Anything you do 3 or more times that has 3 or more steps has to be documented in a playbook. When somebody has gone through that effort, and that's frankly, there's been some clients that's been quicker, but that's generally a 6 to 9 to 12 month journey to have a tidy, optimized, and proprietary business. We've had some advisors that have been done in 90 days or less for urgent reasons, whatever they might be. And for others, they haven't been in a panic, but they want to get it done, especially the advisors where their clients start asking the question, when are you going to retire? Or what happens to us when you bow out? They're starting to think about that. So you want to get out in front of that. So it's a very meticulous, methodical approach. But here's the thing. The valuations on businesses today, this is like the most incredible form of forced savings, working on your business in the spirit of the end game and the exit strategy, because it's like slamming money in the bank. It's like every dollar of effort and capital you pour into the business, the ROI is exceptional, especially now.
Golly, so much value of what you just shared there. And I definitely want to park a little bit on because it seems like such a dwelling thing, especially a saying you always said back in the day, and I will never forget it because I use it all the time. It's vapor to paper. So making it real. So actually writing stuff down and even going on journeys ourselves of creating things. It's just so tough because it's like you have all these ideas as a visionary, but actually putting it down on paper. Talk a little bit about that, because that is so tough. And you want to outsource everything because you want to be efficient with your time. So can you talk a little bit about the visionary who needs to write down certain things, put a process together? How much more of a multiple you would get are people that would actually look at you seriously if you have it written down as opposed to it's just in your head?
Here's what's fascinating now is the advent of AI. So I think you saw it, but we put out a pretty substantial white paper on AI for the financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about, IP and vapor to paper, AI can put you in the red zone for everything. Like, for example, You can go to ChatGPT right now and give it this prompt. Just say, I'm a financial advisor. I lead a team of 4. I want to elevate the client experience. Create a framework for me so I can build a playbook and procedures manual so that I can, just take it to the next level. Just give it that prompt. And in about 3 seconds, it's almost like a checklist of a flight plan, like an entire framework is provided for you. And I'm sure it's scraping from some of our stuff, because I've looked at some of these outputs from AI and I'm like, boy, that looks very familiar. But again, this is the beauty of crowdsourcing. But you can have a framework right in front of you today, and then you can just chip away. The best teams, they develop this habit where they say, okay, we want to maximize our enterprise value. We want to elevate and step it up. Let's once a week have a scheduled recurring meeting for an hour every Friday at 2 p.m., let's just say. Lock the door, turn off the phones, and just work on the business, chipping away at this framework. They can have 80 to 90% of their procedures manual built out in 90 days following that. And again, you want to have a digital version, but I also like a physical version because there's something powerful about having your procedures manual in your hands and just saying, wow, this is my way. This is my process. And to be able to show a client that, or a strategic partner. It's interesting with accountants and attorneys and other influencers. One of the big things that undermines advocacy is they're not clear on how introducing a client of theirs to the advisor will ultimately come back to reflect on them. Like if I'm an accountant, it's easy for me to refer someone to you. It's just easier not to. But unless and until I know how my client's going to be handled and taken care of, and what kind of feedback they're going to give me after the introduction, when I get to that point, the referability of the advisor goes up dramatically. And these are all sort of ripple effects that come out of having this playbook and this procedures manual and all of everything organized.
Here is financial planning software to make you shine. Retirement Analyzer software by Thomas Gold Solutions helps advisors nationwide create easy-to-understand financial plans for their clients. Today's successful advisor understands that clients are in need of advice, recommendations, and projections of possible outcomes that are provided in a financial plan. Thousands of advisors using Retirement Analyzer know that they are a formidable force in today's industry. They know that clients buy certain outcomes, which include sales of financial products. So in essence, products are not the focal point, but just part of the plan, helping them get to their desired outcome. Retirement Analyzer gives you the ability to answer any and all client questions while building plans to address certain concerns. Acclimation is a breeze, and their over-the-top user training and support platform is unparalleled in the industry today. So start today and request your 14-day trial to find out what it's like to be a part of Retirement Analyzer community of advisors. Go to retirementanalyzer.com and get started today. Yeah, it's amazing because I think, to your point too, it's that curb appeal. It's also to advisors before even thinking about multiples and selling their business. It's attracting who they want to work with. So people with millions of dollars, they want to make sure that they are aligning their life savings and their just life of not just financials, but their family to the right partners. And I think just little steps along the way of what the framework your team puts together has continued to help advisors with the multiples. But what has probably been some of the challenges? So I know not everything's rosy. So there's probably advisors that have tried to sell their business. Maybe they prevailed, but it was delayed. So what are some challenges for advisors to be on the lookout for, to avoid, if they want to take on that journey over the next 6 to 12 months?
Good question. And, in a perfect world, from an expectation management perspective, I ask an advisor, I say, just detach yourself from an expectation of an outcome in terms of how much and when. Just focus on what matters, focus on what you can control, and immerse yourself in the process and be at peace with the outcome. The old mantra that it's not the wind, it's the set of the sail. I mean, there's so many external dependencies and so many things swirling around that can undermine or get in the way. And I just ask advisors, I just say, just zoom out of that for a second and just put your head down on working incrementally on your business. And generally based on cause and effect, good things happen. And especially now, I mean, the multiples are incredible, but I think I would just say, the expectation management aspect is huge. And in any type of teaming, scaling, collaboration, exit, I have another little framework. It's an acronym. It's PSP. You always want to establish relationships methodically to validate the alignment of interests. Okay. So what I mean by that is the ideal scenario for any type of business relationship is what we call PSP. So it's the first P is philosophical. Like, it's just like having a fit process with a client. Like, you don't want to bring on a client that's not a good fit. Right. So there's an alignment there. So it starts philosophically, like our worldview is the same. We both buy into stewardship, not salesmanship. We both buy into client experience. Like, we are philosophically, we're wired the same way. So make sure that the qualities and the everything's harmonized there philosophically. Strategically, every investment in this alignment has to benefit the client. Like, how does the client win? Okay. So be very methodical about, building that out. So philosophical, strategic, and then practical. Practical is the economics, the economic question. So Jeremy, I say to my clients, I say, let it all cascade to the economics. Don't lead with the economics. Like, don't enter into a conversation where all you're talking about is, how much money you're going to make on this, because it's basically what you're doing is you're selling your clients, you're transacting, you're handing off your clients. And that's not a pure way to approach this. So that's just our approach, cause and effect. So be methodical, philosophical, strategic, practical, and generally the outcomes are pretty favorable. And you can be in the driver's seat, or you can kind of cherry pick a little bit, because the stronger your position, the better your decision. And the stronger your position stems from just the preparation that you've thought it all through.
And yeah, it goes back to it's kind of, I chuckle here because 12 years later, and I still can remember some of the one-page PDFs your team would send over to us with PSP on it. So all the technology, all the things that has been evolving in how business moves, it still sticks to the core. Fascinating to actually hear it.
Things change. Mm-hmm. Human nature remains the same. Mm-hmm. So if you can adhere and be respectful of human nature, not pressing, not wanting it more than someone else, but just naturally attracting. Again, it's an alignment of interest. Your value is bought, not sold. You're not trying to convince somebody to do something. Often when somebody is convincing somebody else, there's anticlimax in the outcome. There's buyer's remorse. This whole caveat emptor, caveat venditor dynamic, it's all self-interest propelled. But when somebody is just completely transparent and let's just see where the fit is, and methodical, it's like a pilot before they take off. They've got their flight plan. They've got their checklist. So nothing gets missed. It's just the way to go.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I did want to talk about, curiosity, because you've been doing it for a while. So what are some of the multiples? So if I would say some of the people that your team knows of or even have helped, for an advisor who's actually sold their practice and it's as buttoned up as it gets over the years, what was a good multiple for that individual that they actually were able to exit with? And then maybe also in the same breath, what were ones that were not? Well, I mean, still successfully, if you're able to transition and get a multiple, it's great. But like, what's the scale based off what you've seen?
We've seen that evolve quite dramatically in the last 5 years, where 2 or 3x was kind of the norm, plus or minus, depending on, client engagement, complexity of client, inflection point, like achieving breakthroughs and things like that. But, as somebody goes further through the top dynamic, right, of being tidy, optimized, and proprietary, if somebody gets to the point where they're franchise ready and literally they're scalable, the value of their business is more significant because it's all proprietary. They've got a process in place. So, it's gone from 3x to 5, 7, 10. Now with private equity involved, they're buying, cash flow, but they're also buying intellectual property. The valuations are incredibly significant. And then, of course, there's the sell and stay. I like advisors where they de-risk a little bit, right? Just take a little off the table to align themselves in a scenario where they can make the last 3 to 5 years that they're going to be involved in the business completely liberating. They can just flourish fully because they've, diversified themselves a little bit. And, it's funny. I was talking to an advisor last week and we were talking about exit strategy and end game. And he's having a tough time getting his head around it because this is a big part of his life. So I told him, I said, I want you to set a goal in 18 months so you can take a 6-month sabbatical where you could literally take off for 6 months, be in touch but out of reach. And, where it wouldn't be the Eric show. Okay. 18 months. I'd like you to set that goal. And the reason why I was walking him through this, because I wanted to get his head around the concept of his business being productive without him having to be present. And I said to him, you get to that point and, you're going to be open and forthright with your clients as to why you're doing it. And you're going to position it all properly. You're going to prepare your team. It'll take about 18 months. But at the same time, simultaneously, the value of your business will increase because you've optimized and made everything proprietary. So there's various ways to approach this, but a lot of it is psychological. It's very emotional for a lot of people who've been doing what they've been doing for a long time. It almost defines them in many respects. But, it's interesting to have a conversation with somebody to find out what's next, what the next chapter in their life is.
Selling the Ibexus FIA Plus and Wealth Defender FIAs just got even easier. Starting June 1st, they have increased street comp by 1% for clients ages 71 and up, putting more money in your pocket while helping retirees grow and protect their wealth. Plus, Ibexus has raised participation rates so you can offer even more value and upside potential. It's a win-win for your clients and your business. For more information, go to www.insuremarkamp.com/jhauser and click on Learn More. Don't miss this opportunity to boost your earnings and deliver stronger solutions. And we're seeing a common trend too, though. So that's the interesting you said that, where especially with PE involved, where advisors who have been doing something for 30 plus years, it is them. That's literally who they are, how they function. That's what takes up majority of their days. So to officially walk away, to have a process where you got a couple of years of a buyout process to where you're still engaged and you get to almost recreate who you are outside of the business, that seems to be one that is very attractive to advisors instead of just completely walking away. Because then it's they're lost. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you said that. Yeah.
You can only golf and play pickleball so often, right? You still have to have some meaning and purpose in your life. And, it's interesting. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a pretty substantial advisor, and we're propelling him in the direction of sort of becoming the ambassador of the firm. So he's still going to interact with certain clients, and he's still going to be there for strategic and visibility purposes. But he's literally got that work optional lifestyle. He's going to work because he wants to, not because he has to, but he's also getting into that mode of duality where he's talking about his clients and helping them give themselves permission to live their life a little bit. You probably heard of the book Die with Zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an interesting premise. And by the way, any book that you hear of now, you can just go into ChatGPT and say, give me a 5-point summary of the book Die with Zero, and you'll get the salient points. It's quite fascinating. But yeah, it's fascinating. A lot of first generation self-made affluents, they've overcome so much. They have so much resilience because they overcame some early adversity, and it wired them to be frugal. There's a lot of self-made affluent people who have deep pockets and short arms, right? Because they when it comes to economics, they don't give themselves permission to indulge. So, advisors can respectfully sort of nag and pester their clients and say, go do the Viking River cruise. Go do the trip with your family. Like, a financial advisor was telling me that one of his best clients called him up and said, can I afford to buy a new car? And in his inside voice, the advisor saying, you could afford to go buy the dealership. But the client was just wired around frugality. So there's an interesting sort of life coaching dynamic that comes here. Jeremy, you've seen it too. Like in the last 5 years, financial advisors wear a lot more hats today than they used to. I mean, I have advisors that tell me like, man, like a marriage counselor, I'm like a family dynamics advisor, I'm a business consultant, I'm a life coach. It's so powerful when a client gets to a point where there's such a meaningful level of trust that they sort of open up and bare their souls. Well, there's a responsibility with that. So, and again, the duality, when the advisor can operate congruently, saying like, I'm moving in this direction myself. I want to enjoy the rest of my life, but I'm also going to make sure my clients enjoy the rest of their life as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example of like, for the advisors, that exactly what you just said, when they are life coaches, they come for marriage advice, they become literally, as an advisor, they become the Google to the customer of just like, hey, what's going on in the world? So that's where advisors doing something for 30 plus years, and they have all these stories, but it's one of those where the challenge becomes like, tell that more. And how do you tell that more? You got to put it down somewhere so people see that type of benefit in your practice of, it's not just a financial plan. This is what you're getting with our team. So odd way to get there, but out of curiosity. So for people doing things 30 plus years in their business, how hard is it for them? Because you've seen the impact. How hard is it for them to incorporate AI more on the process side of their business? Because a lot of people that I speak to, they say, it's interesting, that looks good, but I don't even know where to begin with AI. So what do I do with that? So how hard is that? And what are some of the things and tips you can give to that advisor?
Okay. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that, you're not trying to impress somebody, but you want to impress upon them that the clay is soft. Like, you're not mailing it in here. Like, you have not plateaued. You're working on yourself personally, professionally, spiritually.
Yep.
Like, multifaceted, not just economically. Now, I want to go back to something. You talked about how some of our stuff has got some longevity. You remember the acronym FORM, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
FORM is the framework for how to be a goals-based professional, because every conversation you have with the client, you talk about their family, their occupation, their recreational interest, and you talk about their money. Just giving it a frame like that is incredibly powerful. And everything a client tells you about what's going on in their family, occupation, recreational life is proprietary. So does it go to your head to die, or do you and your team document it to strengthen the chemistry you have with the client? It's incredibly important. Now with AI, the powerful thing about AI is that it's not going out and finding information that exists somewhere else. It's assembling information for you. And the speed and the accuracy of what it's assembling is governed a lot by the quality of the prompts you give AI. But it's literally providing information for you, and it's learning your nuance and your style. So you can literally go find anything regarding AI. So at a minimum, I mean, this is not optional. Like at a minimum, every advisor's got to have either ChatGPT or Grok, which is the Twitter X AI, on their phones, and form the habit of just going out and finding information. Like, let's talk about exit strategy. So if I'm a financial advisor, if I go to ChatGPT and say, I'm a financial advisor, I'm 5 years out from my exit strategy, I've got a team of 3, what considerations should I make to create a continuity and succession plan? Just wait 3 seconds and you'll have an entire framework. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but you're going to be in the red zone. It's a lot better than starting with a blank sheet of paper trying to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
It just propels you with momentum to just go through the exercise and enjoy and embrace the exercise. So, and again, I'll just say it again, the difference between going out and finding information that exists somewhere else versus assembling information that's specific to what you're trying to accomplish is incredibly profound.
Who wouldn't want prosperity in their life? Doesn't that sound nice? Prosperity Life Group is a new name to the IMO space, and member companies have over a century of tradition dating back to 1914. Today, PLG is an insurance, reinsurance, and asset management company with over $25 billion in assets under management and is issuing over $2 billion of annuity business in 2024. Member companies include SUSA, Shenandoah Life, SBLI USA, and National Western Life. A- ratings with AM Best and S&P. Prosperity Asset Management is an in-house investment management team based in New York City, specializing in high-quality credit and niche asset strategies. Be on the lookout for a unique and new innovative fixed index offering this summer. For more information on Prosperity Life Group, go to www.prosperitylife.com. And I heard it somewhere. I don't know where. I've heard you speak about it, and I started actually using it into my process, because literally it emails me every day, and it's fascinating. It was like the rundown or something. It's a rundown AI, or what's that website where? Because now I get these updates similar to, I think, what you've talked about. What is that again? That tool?
So if you're on Twitter X, you can follow them there, or you can just go to the rundown and subscribe to their email distribution. Every day at 4 a.m. in my email, I get an update from the rundown, and it's what's going on in the world of AI. Now, the reason why I like it, Jeremy, is because it's written for the AI sector. Like there's job postings, there's stealth drops, like who's doing what in the world of AI. And it just gives you an indication of the velocity of how this is evolving. Like I ask advisors, be a serious student. As a fiduciary, you've got to know where this is going, because every aspect of the digital world is being impacted right now by AI. Like we all know the blue chip providers, but literally everything is being impacted by AI. So as a fiduciary, as a person, it's fascinating. If you're a student, and you're just thinking about self-actualization and becoming the best version of yourself, like book summaries, like instantaneous. Like in the old days, somebody would say, oh, you got to read this book, Atomic Habits or Traction or whatever, Good to Great. And I'd write that down, and I'd have the intention, and it would go to my head to die, right? Law of diminishing intent. It would just forget. Now, literally, I'm at a conference and somebody says, hey, have you read this book? I can go on my phone, ChatGPT, and say, provide a summary of the book Entitlemania by Richard Watts or whatever. And there it is in my hands in seconds. And I can decide, okay, is that enough? Or do I want to go further? So as a fiduciary, as a person, but also as a professional, like building out your intellectual property, building out, like I said to a financial advisor, I said, who's your ideal client? Like, who are you suited for? And he sort of got into this long-winded data dump about who his ideal client was. I said, so how would you articulate that to somebody without, putting them to sleep? You can't bore someone into buying something here. I mean, you need to have something that's a little bit more brief and succinct. So we went and put together an ideal client profile on ChatGPT framed around NVG, needs, values, goals. These are the needs that my clients have now and in the future. These are the values that my clients are wired with, how they see the world and how they're governed. And these are their goals and aspirations. And with a couple of prompts with that frame on one sheet of paper, there's his ideal client. And his ideal client is, self-made business owner, professional executive in the prime of their life. They're tracking towards financial independence. They're 5, 10, 15 years out from an exit strategy, liquidity event, or retirement or work optional lifestyle. But it's beautifully framed in NVG. Now he can show everybody. He can say to his clients, we made a decision. We're not going to be all things to all people. We're going to be all things to some people. This is who we're suited for. Now we can start to convey some professional scarcity in the marketplace. I'm not all things to all people. My goal isn't to see how big I can get. It's how small I can stay so I can go deeper into the evolving needs of these very complex clients. Now he's got professional scarcity with accountants and lawyers and other influencers because he's removing the mystery. While other advisors are talking in terms of who they're looking for, he's talking in terms of who he's suited for. It's far more attractive, far more succinct, and far more effective. And that's, again, can all be brought to life with AI.
Beyond valuable. It's fascinating. And NVG was literally another form that you used to talk about a lot over 10 years ago. And it just evolves. And I think the AI tool, especially, I know for me specifically for what I do, I mean, like you just said, I don't even go to Google. I go to perplexity.ai on my phone, and literally it's the same thing as a chat GPT. And it's just amazing. And then the pictures you can make with it. I saw on literally today, the rundown sent out a message. So I've started watching that just to get a gauge of being, in the know of what's going on out there. And I think in the NBA playoff game, they just mentioned that there's going to be an AI commercial that is just completely AI generated for some company that was like 95% cheaper than what the cost of a typical ad commercial would cost. And that's going to air on, I think, tomorrow or something like that for the upcoming game. So it's just fascinating if you're willing to use and you see it for what it is, of like, make it complement what you're doing. Don't make it take over stuff, but complement what you're doing.
I was just going to say the writing's on the wall. Like, I mean, AI is not new. It's just sort of new to us on a retail level. I mean, you go back and watch the movie AI from 20 years ago, or The Minority Report, or I, Robot, or, there's so many different movies that showed what's coming with respect to AI. So it's not new. It's just new to us. But where does this go? Like, what does this look like as it accelerates? It's just You've got to be a serious student. And here's the one thing I'll just remind everybody. The beautiful thing about AI is the one thing it'll never have is EI, and that's emotional intelligence. That's the bedside manner. That's where relationship management really is. And what advisors are starting to figure out is that their fee worthiness is going to start coming more from their commitment to practice management and relationship management. So practice management is just the consistency of the client experience. Activating the sense of belonging that as a client, I'm in good hands. I'm well looked after. Okay. And relationship management, just removing the mystery. This impacts how the advisor is perceived and described, managing relationships, managing how people interpret, the signal to noise ratio and all the distractions and just how they're feeling. Like that's what's going to make the advisor fee worthy. The concept of asset management, it's obviously fundamentally essential, but it's becoming so commoditized. I mean, clients can go and get a lot of that for free now, but what can't they get? What is the bigger growing unmet need? It's that I'm in a safe harbor, I'm well looked after, and I actually understand and appreciate the advisor's value. When a client gets there, they're not worried about last month's statement. They're not fixated on products, pricing, and performance. They're focused directionally on where this relationship's going. This is why it's such an exciting time.
Emotional intelligence. Goodness gracious. I love it. As we wrap up, any final thoughts or things that we missed?
Well, I'm sure everybody follows you on LinkedIn. You're an essential follow. Somebody wants to keep tabs with us. We're there as well, as you know. We're pretty active there. Mm-hmm. I would encourage everybody to, and maybe you can make this available, our AI white paper. It's pretty beefy. I think it's 50 odd pages, 17 actionable proven strategies. And Jeremy, we don't get into all the esoteric stuff that makes for a good conversation, but isn't practical, or isn't allowable based on compliance. There's so much swirling around that just, it's not realistic. We tend to stick with the tried and true, the fundamentally sound, what's proven. Like Vince Lombardi said, be brilliant at the basics, right? It doesn't have to get complex. Mm-hmm. Like just keep it very, very simple. So these 17 best practices, they're bona fide. So I would recommend getting your hands on that AI white paper and, just be a serious student of all things practice management and relationship management. Keep refining your approach to asset management. But I'll tell you, more and more of our clients are getting out of the asset management business for all intents and purposes. Like it's fascinating. We do a time audit. If an advisor works 45 hours a week, they're spending 15 hours managing money, 15 hours managing their business, 15 hours managing their clients. 2 of those 3 are proprietary. 1 is commoditized. We're seeing advisors take the first 15 down to 5. They're outsourcing, automating, allocating, and taking that 10 hours of freed up time and plowing it into their business and plowing it into their relationships, being more proactive, more predictive with their clients, being more consistent, being more process driven. And as a good friend of mine would say, the fish jump in the boat and the business runs like a Swiss watch. I mean, this is the joy and this is the beauty. And, people who follow you have earned the right to get to that next level. And it doesn't take much, just, some tweaks and commitment to process.
Man, that is probably one of the most valuable things you just said. Wow. 45 hours, 15, 15, 15. People are getting out and managing money. That is fascinating. People, processes, product. So thank you. Thank you so much, Duncan. Pareto Systems continues to be a absolute essential thing for businesses growing. So thank you for your time. And thank you also to the listener for tuning in to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the Advisor Mentorship Podcast on your favorite listening device. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Jeremy Hauser AMP. And also, when you're sharing this episode with a friend or a colleague, remember, in a world full of betas, be an alpha.